Hi guys, welcome back to Loro Emi TV. Today I bring to you the very interesting story of the infamous Nigerian sorcerer and self-proclaimed prophet of God and religious figure Eddie Okeke, who was popularly known as Eddie Nawgu, aka Okala Mmadu Okala Mmadu, which means half man, half spirit. Alusi ne eje uka, which means the deity that goes to church. We bring to you the story of how Eddie Nawgu started as a young boy in his local village community of Nawgu in Dunukofia local government area of Anambra state in the southeastern part of Nigeria, to when Eddie Nawgu became one of the most renowned but questionable and controversial prophets and miracle maker in the whole of Nigeria in the mid to late 90s, to the tragic moment he was publicly executed and burned to ashes by men of the dreaded Bakassi Boys at Ochanja Market in Onitsha on the 9th of November 2000. Stay tuned as we bring to you all of these and more. But before we begin, if you're new to our channel, you're highly welcome to Loro Emi TV, and please do well to hit on that subscribe button and do not forget to turn on the notification bell so you can always stay updated and notified whenever we post a new video. We post very interesting content every day. Without further ado, let's jump right into our story. Eddie Nawgu was born Edward Oyebuchi Okeke in 1957 in a small village known as Nawgu in Dunukofia local government area of Anambra state in the southeastern part of Nigeria. He was from the Igbo heritage. He was popularly known in the mid-90s as Eddie Nawgu amongst his Igbo people. His nickname Nawgu came about because he was from Nawgu community, a small town situated in Dunukofia local government area of Anambra state in the southeastern part of Nigeria. At the age of 29, Eddie Nawgu Okeke claimed he had been touched by the biblical God and was given the ability to see and perceive what the ordinary human eye or other four senses could not intercept. Shortly after he began his ministry, he built a church-like structure and named it Anambra Healing Center. He stated that the reasons for creating the Anambra Healing Center was to heal the sick people in the community and restore hope to people, but that wasn't exactly the case. After a few years, people started speaking of his illicit activities. In 1990, for instance, worshippers in one of his services were told to bless two men who the prophet had prayed for previously for breakthrough, and it turned out that the duo or the two men had successfully transported hard drugs to Europe without being caught, and Eddie Nawgu asked his church members to thank God for their successful journey. The self-proclaimed prophet of God had become a person of interest in numerous crimes committed not only in the community but across Anambra state as a whole. As a result, he had begun to attract the attention of the Bakassi Boys, a vigilante security group which was set up and spearheaded under the tenure of Okeke Mmadu, former governor of Anambra state, with a single mandate to fish out criminals, sponsors of criminal gangs, and men of questionable characters like Eddie Nawgu. Eddie Nawgu had been accused of kidnapping, aiding and abetting infamous criminals, partaking in rituals involving the use of human body parts, illegal possessions of firearms, and human sacrifices. This took him to the top of their most wanted list. Eddie Nawgu became more visible, daring, and pronounced. By the mid-90s, he became friends with almost all the questionable millionaires of that era. They all paid him homage and had him perform tasks such as house opening and dedication of their infants. He was said to be well known by most military administrators of the time. Most of them visited Eddie Nawgu at his healing center where he prayed for them. He proudly bore the names Alusi ne eje uka, which means the deity that goes to church, and Okala Mmadu Okala Mmadu, which means half man, half spirit. Eddie Nawgu was proudly called all of these names. Eddie was visited 14 times before the men were able to match his powers and apprehend him on the 4th of November 2000. Eddie Nawgu's wife, Joyce Okeke, was present when he was arrested. She narrated the story, and I quote, "It was on the 4th of November 2000 at about 4 a.m. I was asleep. Suddenly, I heard a loud bang on the bedroom door. Someone said, 'Open this door or I will break it down.' I ran to the door. My husband was sleeping. There was a second bang. I opened the door. I saw lots of men with pump action guns and machetes. They asked, 'Where is your husband?' And I asked them who they were. They pushed me aside. I called my husband to wake up. They went and pulled him from the bed. He asked them who they were, and they said they were Bakassi Boys, also saying that it was a government order. There were about 40 of them and more outside. My husband asked them what they wanted, and they were hitting him. They dragged him outside. One Bakassi was standing at the door with a gun. He told me to go outside and cocked his gun at me. They were still beating my husband. Another group came in and asked me to show them my husband's room. There was a boy in front of them. I recognized him as a local boy, an armed robber. He had previously assisted people who were after my husband. They turned the whole room upside down. The boy was doing it while the others were watching. They asked me where my husband's gun was, and I replied, "Which guns?" There was one double-barrel gun, but they were asking for pump actions and pistols. I told them we didn't have any. One of them raised his machete and said, "I will cut off your head if you don't give us those guns." They found nothing. He said, "Turn your back and I will cut off your head." He charged towards me with his machete, raised it, then put it down. They told me they would take me with my husband and that he would be finished if they don't find what they wanted. I went with them and asked the girl to close the door. One of the Bakassi asked me if I wanted to show them anything, and I said no, there were only children in there. The children were scared, so we had locked the door. The Bakassi wanted to shoot. I said, "There are children in there." He asked, "Which children?" "The ones you sell." I asked the children to open. The Bakassi just looked in and left them. Meanwhile, I had the Bakassi outside shooting. I came out with them. Some were behind me, some were in front. I was just wearing my sleeping clothes and a wrapper. My husband was just wearing his shorts. They had used his shirt to tie his hands. Outside, I saw Bakassi everywhere. They had made people in the compound lie face down. Lie face down outside. They were hitting them on their back with machetes. Mrs. Okeke also narrated how the Bakassi boys took 3 of their cars and arrested her father-in-law, elder brother-in-law, and another relative after hearing gunshots for about an hour in her father's-in-law compound. She also said the Bakassi boys came back by noon and took their entire fleet of cars and particulars, also asking again for hidden guns, which they claimed her husband asked her to give them. Hundreds of visitors, many of the press reports which appeared at that time of his death, replicated the Bakassi boys' allegation about him that he was a criminal who had engaged in assaults, extortion, drug dealing, trafficking in children, and ritual killing, foiling the belief that the Bakassi boys had caught yet another high-profile criminal. Relatives and friends of Eddie Okeke appealed to the governor of Anambra State to save him after his initial abduction, but apparently failed to order his release or prevent his death, despite initially promising to do so. When a friend of the family called the governor on November 6, 2000, 2 days after Eddie Okeke was abducted, the governor reportedly first claimed that he did not know who Eddie Okeke was. Then he asked whose side he was on a comment interpreted by relatives and friends as implying that Eddie Nawgu had opposed or at least not supported the governor. He reportedly stated that Eddie Okeke had not paid him homage since he was appointed as the governor of Anambra State. It was alleged that during his detention, he made several shocking confessions, claiming to be particularly gifted in making potent charms capable of aiding its users to disappear in awkward situations. And for protection of himself, Eddie Nawgu made concussion by killing a 3-day-old baby, and for money he would sacrifice a pregnant woman and the developing fetus. Total number of people killed for this purpose were pegged at 93, meaning Eddie Nawgu actually killed about 93 people for ritual's sake, with 16 children missing from a maternity in Onitsha traced to him. He was said not to be able to sleep during the duration of his time in the cell after his hair was shaved, before he was cut into pieces and burned by the vigilante group at the Ochanja Market Square in Onitsha. He was said to have repeatedly begged to be thrown into the river Niger, and also advised everyone he had given a walking stick over the years to discard it in the same river upon his death. He was married to Joyce Okeke, and together they were parents to 8 biological children. After the death of Eddie Okeke, the state government set up a panel of inquiry into the case. The panel had no legal status, no power to require further actions by the authorities, and its findings were never published. The Bakassi Boys themselves never appeared before the panel, despite a 2-month extension to enable them to do so. Their lawyer testified for them instead. He claimed that Eddie Nawgu had been killed by a mob. He stated that the Bakassi Boys were on their way to Oka to hand Eddie Nawgu over to the police when they were confronted with a large mob who attacked them. The Bakassi Boys were terrified, so they abandoned their vehicle and ran away. When they returned, they saw a fire and Eddie Okeke was no longer there. The Bakassi Boys' lawyer's evidence was not challenged by the panel. Well, according to the Bakassi Boys' lawyer, Eddie Nawgu wasn't killed by the Bakassi Boys, but was rather killed by a mob who attacked them. The news of Eddie Nawgu's death was never directly communicated to his family. His wife explained how she found out. She said, and I quote, "On Thursday, November 9th, I heard on the radio that my husband had been burned and killed at Ochanja roundabout in Onitsha. It was all over the radio and the papers. Gilbert Okoye was denying that the Bakassi had taken him, and the government was claiming it was a mob action. Up until now, I can't say what's happened. I tried to find out, but everyone was scared. I wrote several letters to the Inspector General of Police, to the President, to the House of Representatives, to the Ministry of Women Affairs and others. I just wanted to find out what had happened. I didn't get any reply, except one from the House of Representatives expressing the sympathy of the Speaker, and one from the Ministry of Women's Affairs asking me to come to Abuja. I met some people in the ministry. They said they would get back to me. That was 5 months ago. I have had nothing since then." At the time of creating this content, no one has yet been charged with the murder of Eddie Nawgu.